I've seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. Joining me this evening, we have Craig Manson. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening, Happy New Year all.
Johnny McGinty.
Good evening, Happy New Year.
And John Anderson. Hello, John.
Hello, Happy New Year and all that.
Yeah, it's the new year. So any big resolutions, John?
So I'm gonna stop criticising Scottish rugby fans. This is
See how long that lasts. I don't think that's going to last.
That's not even going to make this podcast.
Isn't that what a New Year's resolution is all about? It's about setting yourself unattainable, unachievable, nonsensical goals that don't last past the 5th of January.
We're a great bunch of pals, aren't we? Really supportive. Rather than just going, you can do this. You won't last the podcast. Johnny, how about you?
Similarly unachievable. I will try not to call the damn stadium a gazebo.
Okay.
That might not
last
past the end of the podcast. We'll see.
We'll see. Craig?
I might have to try and confirm that actually Jack Dempsey is an all right player.
That's what the crowd want, Craig.
It seems to be.
I turned 40 last year, so I was going to have a New Year's resolution to have a midlife crisis, but I don't know, I just can't be asked. It seems like a lot of effort.
Do you not think if you're setting yourself at midlife crisis at 40, you're really, really limiting your lifespan? Like, do you not think?
I don't know, John.
Like, do you think maybe like have a midlife crisis at 50 and then you'll get a letter for the Queen?
Exactly.
Is that how it works? You decide when your midlife crisis is going to happen, and then you live. Exactly.
That's exactly how it works.
I'll wait till I'm 100 then.
Well, that's me at 48, and I've just given up alcohol. So maybe that's a.
Have you bought a motorbike?
Oh no, I've had that for a while.
All right. Okay. Sorry to tell you, Craig, your midlife crisis has happened, mate.
Oh, I know.
Your midlife crisis happened when you were 19.
Funnily enough, I've just cut this rat tail.
There's a ghost coming in, Craig. There's a ghost behind you.
Oh, it's one of my dogs comes in.
So Doug.
He doesn't like the door being shut. You know.
Well, that's the only things I could see is I'd either have to get on a motorbike, and I don't like motorbikes, or like have an affair, but I love my wife, and it seems like a lot of hassle and admin. So
I've told you my opinion on affairs before, Cammy. If the director of the CIA can't manage one without getting caught, then there's no way you can manage it.
Well, no, if professional sportsmen can't manage it without being caught, then, you know, and they've got agents and people to cover up for them and entourages and stuff, then don't wag your finger at me, John. I'm not going to say anything untoward. They'll get sued. Don't worry.
The man who's in charge of the spies can't do it. Exactly.
Then Yeah.
Sorry, Cammy, I forget. This is not Cammy off leash, Cammy.
No, this is no. Although I am on the McEwen, I am on cans of McEwen's export tonight. So let's see where the evening takes us. Anyway, speaking of where the evening will take us, if you're watching us at the moment, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can also sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast for £3 a month. And in return, you get access to a weekly bonus podcast. And you can watch that live either on our Patreon page, on our secret YouTube feed, or you can watch it on our secret Facebook page, where you can also join in on the comments as well. If you are watching live, hop in on the comments and we'll pick up the some of the best ones, not one slagging off John's forehead. Hello to Jordan.
Just messaging him to tell him exactly what he is.
Yeah, and you can also download the podcast as an audio podcast as well on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Anywhere you can get podcasts, and you also, if you're a patron, you get an audio version of the Patreon only bit of the podcast as well. We are also this month joining in with Doddy Aid. So if you go to doddyaid.com, you can sign up for that. So basically, they split into regions. So you just walk or run or do whatever you want and try and get your chosen region to the top of the chart. So you can join. Let's have a look. What regions are there again? So I'm in the South one, South District. So they've done it properly, like districts. Bring back the districts. There you go. So I'm in the South. We've got John. You're Glasgow. You're
Glasgow. Yep. Glasgow.
What did you choose in the end, Craig?
I have signed up for Edinburgh.
You signed up for
just
Edinburgh.
to make a balance for everybody.
That's fine. And then Johnny, you're in North and Mid Scotland.
I am indeed. The true North and Mids.
And then you can also sign up if you're not in Scotland, or you don't have you're not Scottish. Maybe you don't identify with a particular district. You can sign up for the Barbarians district as well. So we've at the moment, although the Barbarians were way ahead in the overall league because they'd done 1 million miles and 6,000 sessions, but somehow they fixed that glitch, because that would have meant that on average everyone was doing 175 miles per session when I worked it out. So they've sorted that out now, and North and Mid Scotland are in the lead at the minute. However, if you do sign up, you can join our podcast league. We've got 21 people in there so far. Fraser Chris Holmes is absolutely smashing it at the minute. He's done 86 miles in 8 sessions, which feels unfair.
Can I just say, I specifically recruited Chiz because he's North and Mids, so that counts for me.
That count. I don't know if that's how it works. Would he
like
agree? Can we get that
am I
in
the
writing
North and
from
Mids
him?
person? I'll happily get him to write it down for you. Absolutely.
Would
In fact, he texted me and said, "I've joined North and Mids because you looked like you needed help." Which
We've got Ian McGilp in second. He's done 69 miles in 5 sessions, and then Craig Hoggs in third. Out of those of us involved in the podcast, inexplicably, I'm top at the minute with 12 miles, having basically wandered around some parks with the kids a little bit and walked them to school and back for a couple of days. There was a glitch in my initial one, which I did about a 2-mile walk, and it said I'd done 10 miles. So I took it.
Yeah.
that'll be getting fixed as well, though, don't worry.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Cammy, is you're not really leading.
I am if we go by the official statistics, which we are, I am leading at the minute. I don't expect that to last, given I do zero exercise other than walking the kids to the school and back.
I might try and see if I can get everyone who's in our league to tell me what district they are, and I'll keep a wee running total.
That would be good, yes. So if you can,
league.
if you want to drop Johnny a DM on Twitter. What's your Twitter again, Johnny?
At Johnny Forms is my Twitter.
At Johnny Forms. So if you drop Johnny a DM if you're in our league, and let him know. I don't think send messages on the Doddy app. It's not that advanced, but let Johnny know which league, which district you're representing, or email podcast@scottishrugbyblog.co.uk and let me know, and we'll try and have a mini districts league within our own league.
Which again, I'm specifically doing because I know Chiz is going to rack up loads of miles, and I know he's North and Mids. So.
If anybody who does any exercise or any decent amount of miles wants to help me with the South, then I'm open to that. The solution would be that I just do more exercise, but quite frankly, I can't be bothered.
So a running pattern here, Cam.
I know. It's January. I'm starting as I mean to go on with a large can of McEwen's export.
Motivated Cammy.
Motivated Cam. Yeah. So we're doing Doddy. So sign up for that and sign up for our league. That'll be a bit fun. We'll keep track on that every week on the podcast to see how we're all getting on. Who knows? It might inspire me into some sort of regime. So tonight, what we thought we'd do is we thought we'd have a little bit of fun because there's been no rugby at all to speak of for a few weeks now, given the COVID has ridden roughshod over the entire Glasgow Warriors squad, possibly the entire Edinburgh squad, although for data protection reasons we're not allowed to know. So
it's just Glasgow. It's Edinburgh clean as a whistle.
The cleanest, all wandering around in the bio bubbles.
Yeah,
except
absolutely.
for the coach.
Oh well, that's true. Yeah. But he was spotted at Scotstoun. That's probably what the problem was.
You're making my New Year's resolution really difficult here, Craig.
Well, there is a gym there. Maybe he's just making use of his gym membership.
Maybe, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, parked at that gym.
No,
I don't think he would be using.
He must still must still have a parking space, presumably.
Not a chance. As soon
as he kept hold of his pass.
No, they take it off you as soon as you're out the door.
Nobody can park at Scotstoun anyway. You have to get the bus.
Aye, but gym users.
I'm sorry, I'm not doing another podcast on bus routes to Scotstoun. We've done that. I think it was this time last year we did bus routes to Scotstoun.
Ian Hayes got some horror stories.
I know, and detailed knowledge of bus routes around Glasgow. Anyway, what we thought we would do is we'd try and we'd do a bit of a prediction podcast. It's the start of the year. Try and make some bold predictions to different areas of Scottish rugby, and then for patrons later on, we're going to be doing just some general predictions for rugby at large. Should we start? I thought we'll start with Super 6 because that'll be returning at some point once club rugby's finished. We might touch on some predictions for club rugby as well while we're here. Craig, you got any predictions for Super 6 this coming season?
This coming season, I predict I predict that it's going to be more than the Super 6. I think it's going to be the Super 7 or the Super 8.
Ooh, that this soon?
This soon.
You would think, but so do you think they've got time to do that?
Well, they didn't have time to put the Super 6 together, and they managed to do it.
True.
So,
that's true.
No, I think from what I can see, the Southern Knights are going to. I reckon you'll probably see a stronger finish to the season for the Southern Knights, but also I think you'll probably see. I'm hoping to see a few, especially people like Heriots, that are going to have a stronger start this time because they're going to be ready for it. So that's my official, rather than a throwaway comment about Super 8. But I think you'll see a stronger start. Yeah.
I think I can see Super 8 in 2023. I think they're already talking about it after the success of the last round. Now we've had a first proper go at it. I can see Super 8 in 2023. I think the issue is going to be where the other two teams come from. You're definitely going to get one in Glasgow. I think the SRU have pretty much come out and said that. Mark Dodson said as much. You get another franchise in Glasgow, so probably looking at Hawks.
Yeah.
There's been no interest in the North. Now that's the question. Then is whether or not the success means you're going to get applications from the North, because the only other places that a franchise, the only other people that seem interested anyway is London Scottish.
Well, I know that Dundee were very, very interested, but I don't know how far, whether they've continued to be interested when they got turned down the last time. I haven't asked that question. I'll have to ask a couple of people that I know whether they're still considering it, because I know that they've kept the merger going between Dundee clubs, and I know that they've certainly set up a women's team, etc., to be to qualify for it as such. So we'll wait and see.
Johnny, your prediction for Super 6?
I'm slightly different to Craig. I think we'll see two completely different finalists this year.
Ooh. Who?
I think there's I kind of want to say Watsonians and Boroughmuir, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of catching up to do, and I don't see the same two finalists, because I think the Edinburgh teams are going to up their game this time.
I think Edinburgh are spread too thin. I think that's the problem with the Edinburgh franchises. I still think they're spread too thin to have 3 franchises in that city. And I know they can pull players in from elsewhere. I think it's more, I think the top 4 will be closer. I know everybody beat everybody pretty much, but I think that I think it'll be tighter going into the final. But I still think it'll be here in Southern Nights. John, Craig, go on.
Sorry, I think Boroughmuir. If Boroughmuir could actually put away some of their silly mistakes, I think they could have been a stronger team this season anyway. So I think Johnny could be on 50% of that. I think that Boroughmuir have a good chance. But Watsonians were very good though. As you've said, everyone beat each other, and they've pulled some fantastic performances out. So. But I like the look of Boroughmuir when they first started. I like some of their players, etc. They looked quite strong, but they just couldn't seem to get away from silly mistakes, etc.
I think you've also got to be aware that with the timing of it, you're going to see players getting released from the pro teams like permanently, and actually that'll make up. Like you saw obviously quite a lot of ex-Glasgow and Edinburgh players tearing it up in Super 6, and I think that makes a huge difference to the potential chances of a team seeing who you can pick up on almost that free transfer situation. Obviously Ayr benefited hugely from having Robbie Nairn there, so players like that, if they become available, I think it could change a side who might be looking at a fourth or fifth position finish could end up winning it. And it's I think for me that probably still shows not the weakness of the Super 6, but certainly the almost the precarious nature of the fixtures, in that it can take just a couple of really, really good players to change the outcome.
I think the only thing I would say though is I don't think we'll see the same exodus or the same transfer of players from pro teams to Super 6 this year, because I think both Glasgow and Edinburgh squads were fairly heavy. You had 2 coaches who were making very tough choices to thin the squads down. So there were a lot of players like Robbie Nairn who found themselves without a club, and I don't think there's many players who are kind of ready to be kind of like cast aside. They wouldn't just move on to do a Nick Grigg and go to a lucrative contract in Japan. I don't think there's much to kind of cut from the current pro squads. I think it's more likely it'll be guys that'll be the academy players that are attached to the pro teams. I think that'll benefit the guys that have had a season of Super 6, like Christian Townsend and guys like that who've had a season of Super 6 and then gone and been involved in the Glasgow camp, who will kind of be the quality of the academy lads coming in. That for me, I think will be the exciting. That'll be the point of difference.
I hope that is the case, because actually I think one of the real benefits of the Super 6 is that kind of way, as you rightly said, everyone can beat everyone on their day, and but I still think Ayr Southern Knights probably be too strong for everyone actually, and we probably will see the same finalists, but I agree it will be closer. My prediction though is that we are going to see continued fabulous amount of attacking rugby, and it's going to be entertainment central yet again, because I think, reflecting on it, we were talking at the time about the Scotland way of playing, and how this was almost being kind of put down through the categories, and we were trying to imprint a way for Scotland to play rugby and a brand of rugby, and I think that's absolutely what the Super 6 is, and I think we'll continue to see that.
Yeah, hopefully everyone's had a chance to work in defence as well during the break.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Fingers crossed.
Tackling optional.
Do we know when it's going to be though the next season? Because
July to October. It's still saying July to.
A big part of how exciting the attacking rugby was last time round was that it was like Friday nights in August, when it's a lot easier to play quick attacking rugby than it is in March.
Yeah, I think it's still looking like it kicks off in July until October. I think the idea of doing it that way is that it doesn't then clash with club rugby and it doesn't clash with the URC. and it gives people that's why you had decent crowds at the mall, because the clubs aren't, people who would go and watch local clubs will rock up to a Super Six match. I would have gone and seen Southern Nights when I was up in Berwick, but they just didn't happen to have a fixture on at the same time. And likewise, you get people who might go and watch Edinburgh or Glasgow might go to a Super Six match over the summer because there's no URC on, and there's no, the Lions were on this season, but nobody watches it. Who watches the summer tests? Nobody watches the summer tests. So I think it's looking like the same schedule. I think the only kind of, I guess the worrying thing is probably from a very quickly on club rugby is what happens this year for club rugby, because I think everyone's been given the option, I think, this weekend of postponing their games. I think there's already quite a lot I've called off already. There was Mark Palmer was saying, who writes for the Times, Italian rugby has lost 378 registered teams since the start of the pandemic.
Wow.
Which is a hell of a lot.
Wow.
So that the number, they've dropped from 1,431 to 1,053. So the biggest fault is in men's 18 and 19 age category, where there's been a 42% reduction in teams and clubs.
I know we've called all our games off this weekend already, and I think quite a lot of people have.
I think it was different during the pandemic because people could pull together, and there was money and grants and funding available to kind of prop up the loss of bar takings, and obviously there was the underlying cost. But if you're not playing rugby matches, there's certain costs that you're not going to be spending. But this time is different because there's no support in place right now. Although the SRU seems to have a lot of money to throw at extending people's contracts. So hopefully that means there's some money down the back of the sofa.
They thought they did. We'll see what happens in the Six Nations.
Well, that's it. We'll come on to that later. So yeah, that's my only worry for club is I don't know where we're going to be with club rugby by the end of the year. I hope there's just going to be a rough couple of months, and then everything will be back to normal, or as normal as it can be. But we'll see.
The closest thing that we'll get to saving the club rugby scene this season is if we can get a 7th season.
Yeah,
that's a huge difference. Makes a lot of money for the host clubs, and it's kind of exciting. Everyone gets involved. So if we can get 7s this year, I think we should hopefully be all right.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason why not, because but at that point you'd be past the kind of pressures on NHS services, and they're generally outdoors or in beer tents, and touch wood anyway that happens. Anybody got anything else for club rugby apart from the fact that obviously Berwick are going to win away at Howe in a couple of weeks?
That's if the game's on, and then I'm sure the Duffus crowd are ready to welcome Berwick wholeheartedly for the game. But it'll be an interesting one. I think just as everyone, I've got no real predictions apart from the fact we're just back in the same old for the last 2 years, and it's just getting a bit ridiculous now.
Yeah,
I think there's light on the end of the tunnel again with this. I think I don't see this being the same as last year at the moment, and I think we can, I will come on to the pro game and the Six Nations and things like that, but I think I don't see club rugby going that same way. I know there's fixtures being called off just now, but I think we'll hopefully get an end to the season in a full way.
Yeah. Kevin Wyniss has asked a question. It's a very good one. Any idea of the average?
Googling away, actually.
Because I think that the SRU put out some stats, I'm sure, at the end of the season about the Super Six and how successful it had been, including viewing figures. I'm pretty sure there was a stat on crowd figure. I know that it got watched a reasonable amount on Free Sports. I know the Free Sports audience was decent for it, and I think the YouTube kind of watches were encouraging certainly they seem to be well attended. I know Ian Hay was at Ladies' Day at Ayr, where the Ayr themselves played, and then the Bulls played a game, I think, afterwards, and he said that was absolutely heaving. I think
I'd be surprised if many of them had less than 4 figures for crowds, to be honest.
Yeah.
I say the first ever, so the only thing I can find with a number attached to it just now on my frantic Googling, the first ever Super 6 game had 1,461 attendance.
Yeah.
So
they couldn't watch the game at Stirling because the grass was too long. So couldn't they see the players?
Oh, come on, grumpy farmer Craig, leave it be.
How very dare you? I am not a farmer.
Or else you would have had the grass cut and it would have been sorted.
It would have been fine. I could have gone along and done my Forrest Gump and sat in the wee tractor and cut the grass.
Would that count towards your miles?
Well, to be perfectly honest, whenever Jenny Bennett is behind me, anything counts towards my miles.
One of my pals asked me yesterday if horse riding counts towards your miles, and I'm not sure, but I hope not.
Unless you register the horse.
I think you should have to say. What you do, how you're getting your miles. Because if you're on a horse or a bike, then
you sound like Grav already.
I
think he's absolutely right, because there's a total hack here where, right, so you batter your miles in, and then you think, you know what, I'm going to go and do a wee bit of rowing and go to the gym and use a different muscle group. You can double your miles. Shocking.
No, I don't mind that.
Double the exercise.
Yeah, that sounds right with double the exercise, but you cover more miles if you cycle than you run.
Yeah, true.
That's my plan anyway. Yeah.
I'm going up to Northumberland. I'm going up to Northumberland at the end of the month. I'll just stick Doddy Gump on when I'm on the drive up.
Nah.
If we're going to do that, I'm back to work. So I'll be.
I recruited our good friend Steph from the Rock and Roll podcast to represent the Barbarians, and that was one of his first questions, because I told him I'd got new pedals for my bike, was, do I get credited more miles for walking than you do for cycling? Because he said he didn't want to lose on a technicality.
Right, this is Steph. This is Steph who did Dodmaster, right? And miscalculated the height of Mount. Thought he could walk up Mount Everest over the course of a week because he had miscalculated the height of it.
His Spinal Tap moment.
He got to base camp.
He did. Yeah. He's only done 3 miles so far in 2 sessions.
I know.
That's halfway at the top of Everest in his career.
I'm not massively concerned about his input, to be honest.
Anyway, right, should we move on? Anyway, right, URC then. Craig, let's start with Edinburgh. What's your prediction for Edinburgh for 2022?
Well, depending on how we finish this year, I know Glasgow will do anything to stop us being at the top of the league, and all of a sudden they've started off with this COVID stuff, so that they were so scared of our halfback partnership of Purgos and Van der Vault that they had to call off. So no, I think Edinburgh will have a strong but fair finish to the season. I think John's real clubs will come and play us, and we'll have a couple of surprise victories, but we'll also have a couple of expected defeats probably. And then I think we'll have some lovely wee signings over the break, and then we'll be all guns blazing for the next season.
Yep,
that's a bit of a middle of the road. Is that just a bit of a middle?
It is a bit of a middle of the road. I think playoffs.
Oh yeah, I think there's a very, very good chance. If the only problem we have is I think Edinburgh have thrived a little bit on them having fans back in the stadium and having the fans quite close to the pitch. So I think it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage with a few games behind.
Do you not think doors, though that's happened enough now so that they would feel comfortable? I know it makes a difference, but do you not think that they've had it for so long now that the kind of the tails are up? So it's not like they need it. It's almost a bit like, suppose it's like one of the things when, like in a film, when someone's given a magic ring and about halfway through the film, they lose the ring and it turns out they never needed the ring in the first place. It's that kind of thing. I can't think of a specific film. It happens in loads of films. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, but before John says it, we're used to not playing in front of fans for quite some time anyway. But I think, John. But no, I don't know. I think this being at the Dam Health, it has certain games that you thought that they would probably lose in the second half. They've stayed on to win it, and I think one of the differences has been a large crowd and the crowd being so close. I'm not saying it is that we are the difference, but I think because we've got some phenomenal players within the squad that have got a lot of resilience now. But I think it's I think we'll get into playoffs. I don't, I would love to think we're going to win it, but I can dream. But the problem you have is Leinster coming along. But if you look at Munster have got a chink in their armour this year. This season, they've been beaten by a couple of teams, and they've been playing their main team as well, or they've been playing their academy. But it's like Leinster; they can just supplant any player from the academy into the main team, and it's still as strong. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think we'll get to the playoffs, but I think we'll maybe come third or fourth.
In Europe, I think knockout's achievable, isn't it?
Very much so. I think a final's achievable in Europe.
Given the European competition you're in.
Yeah,
I got in there before the other two did.
No real teams, because obviously Saracens and Po and places like that aren't a real team,
Po are definitely not a real team.
Hey, listen, I'm not. Listen,
it's a Teletubby, aren't they?
These guys are going out to face these guys. These players from France with the long fingers that poke into people in orifices that you don't want to think about. It'll be interesting. I think I fully expect them, and I would hope them to do something significant in the Challenge Cup.
Yeah. Johnny and John, anything on Edinburgh? Anything fair comment, John, on Edinburgh? What do you see Edinburgh for 2022?
I am fair comment central here. I was not going to say anything. I think
right.
Edinburgh. No, I wasn't actually. Edinburgh benefit greatly from. I agree. I think actually the pitch itself has actually been underplayed as a real benefit to Edinburgh as well. The type of rugby they're playing, they'll be able to sustain that through these winter months when Murrayfield, whilst the pitch is good at Murrayfield, it can still be a bit stodgy underfoot at this time of year. So I think the type of rugby they're playing, they should go okay. Again, I know we're laughing about it, but it's how if Edinburgh keep putting away the teams that they should be beating, which they have done to this point, then there'll be playoffs. The Irish teams are going to come. If they start losing games to teams that they shouldn't be, then they won't be. It's as straightforward as that. I think they should get quite far in Europe as well, given the calibre of teams in there. Saracens are obviously there for being naughty boys, but other than that, they should be okay. So yeah, good. They've got all the chances. I just hope that they get into the spirit of knockout rugby and don't bottle it.
Johnny?
I think a European quarter-final at least is achievable for both teams, to be honest. I would expect Edinburgh to go further in the Challenge Cup than Glasgow do in the Champions Cup, but I'd like to see us both at least get to a quarter-final. I think Edinburgh have obviously started that pretty well. They've got a wee edge over Saracens because Saracens forfeited their game before the French cancellations. So they're in with a good shot. I think they should be seated quite high, I think, for the Challenge Cup.
Yeah. What about Glasgow then, John?
So I think in some ways, I think Glasgow came off the high of the Exeter game, and then obviously COVID happened. I think we were all going into the festive fixture. I think the two games against Edinburgh, I think for both sides, we're going to be really benchmark and quite pivotal in how the rest of the season would pan out. And almost for Glasgow, that momentum that they've had, which I think was more important for them than Edinburgh. Edinburgh have been playing consistently well all season. Glasgow had kind of stuttered and spluttered a bit, and then found something against Exeter. They were very, very good, and it was almost like you really just wanted to be back on the pitch, and obviously things intervened and that wasn't possible. So I am concerned that any momentum that had been built up will be lost, and I think we might find ourselves in a situation where we kind of go back to that stuttery kind of losing to teams we should be beating situation, and our season might just peter out. But I think European wise, we've got a really good shot in Europe, and I think there'll almost be a separation between that and the league now, where we kind of I think players are almost able to get themselves up for that, whereas they might struggle after a wee while in the league. So yeah, prediction wise, I think we will struggle in the league. I think we might make playoffs, but at a push. But in Europe, I think we might go, as Johnny says, we might be all right in Europe.
Yeah, Johnny, do you agree with that?
Yeah. I honestly think the Pizza Crunch Trophy probably comes down to when the 1872 games are rearranged for. Because we've obviously, we've said it a few times, Edinburgh have got some tough games that we've already had. We've had Ulster and Leinster already, and Edinburgh have got them coming up. So if we're on the sort of form that Edinburgh are on now, and they're hitting these tough games when the 1872s get rescheduled, then that could go in our favour. But Edinburgh are a tough team to beat, and if we get them where they're still putting in these really good performances, we could struggle in those games, and then that could be the end of it for the league as far as we're concerned, I think.
No, I was going to say conversely, it could go the other way with Edinburgh. If Edinburgh win those kind of games, then it's the tails are up, and it's if Glasgow in that stuttery form. I suppose the interesting thing for Glasgow, I can kind of like from an Edinburgh point of view, it's it's Mike Blair's first season in charge. There's an upward trajectory. So if we're covering the whole year, that I'm looking towards the start of next season, I think you would hope certainly that Edinburgh would continue on that upward trajectory. I suppose the question for Glasgow, John, is: are Glasgow on a trajectory because it's been really stuttery? Is Danny Wilson going to be here next season?
Yes, he will be. Whether I think that's a good idea or not is completely, inconsequential, really. But no, I think Wilson will be there. I think he's already indicated there's a lot of business being done, so quite a lot of transfers apparently are in quite late negotiations now. Again, whether the impact of potential crowds, no crowds, will have anything to say on that, I hope not. But rumours of some decent signings coming Glasgow's way, which I think the core of the Glasgow team now is there. There's a lot of really, really talented players, and young talent getting more and more game time. I guess I still just worry about the game plan, and I just think if we had a Gregor Townsend in charge, or we had a coach an international caliber coach who we've managed to attract in the past, then would we be doing more with these players? Probably. Is Danny Wilson that coach? No, he's not, and he never will be. But he's a cheap option. So,
Craig, are you more optimistic about Glasgow than John is?
Yeah. I actually think that Glasgow have looked this season back to some of their best rugby that we haven't seen over the season prior. Okay, fair enough. They would, you get a man red carded, and they're at home at Scotstoun, so it's almost like lighting a fire under them, and they're quite gutsy when that happened in the last couple of seasons. But I think overall they've got some phenomenal signings in place, and I think I really do think that they've got all the opportunities in the world this season. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure about Wilson as a coach. He seems to be doing. I can't put it down to whether the players are just getting on with this and trying to, like Dempsey. We keep talking about Dempsey. Dempsey's looking so good at the moment because he seems to just tuck the ball under his arm and go, right, well, I'm going to have to do it myself. And he cracks on with it. And I think if the players are trying to decide, right, well, we're going to get on and do it themselves, they could have a Harlequins moment on their hands, where they're going to go and beat some phenomenal teams and do some phenomenal jobs this year. They do look like a team that I wouldn't want. That I was really looking forward to 1872. I thought it was going to be quite an interesting match. It's either going to be a hugely high scoring one, or it's going to be a 9-7 judge match. But what I'd like to see from Glasgow is I'd like to see, as I've said before, they get a man sent off, or they've got fog, or they've got something that happens, and they seem to dig in and get on with it and play phenomenally well. It'll be interesting to see what they do when they come up against a really organised defence that won't let them do anything, and see, like they did with Ulster. They came up against a very, very strong Ulster team, and they played well, and they seemed to do a good job, but they didn't have enough. So it'll be interesting. I'm no matter what I see on this and the bits of laughs and jokes that we have about it, Glasgow are a fantastic team, and they look very, very strong this season. But we're just lucky that Edinburgh is looking very, very strong at this season as well.
Yeah, it's what I think that the thing for me and the worrying thing for me is normally one team's doing well and the other's doing poorly, and Scotland do okay. We've never been in a situation where both teams are doing quite well, and then seen Scotland do well. So I'm worried. It's like a karma thing. Curse the monkey for the Scottish rugby. You can have two pro teams doing well, or an international team doing well, but you can't have both.
Does that mean that maybe the Super Six is going to be a disaster this season, or something like that, or a domestic game?
Who knows? All bets are off. Should we do Scotland men or Scotland women next?
Scotland women.
Let's do Scotland women rather than sticking at the end. So we've got the World Cup qualifiers on the 18th and 24th of February in Dubai. So that is a semi-final against either Samoa, Colombia, or Hong Kong or Kazakhstan, which game has still not been played, but will need to be played at some point between now and the 18th and 24th of February, hopefully. It'll be a semi-final and then a final, and presumably a third and fourth place playoff, just to kind of make it worthwhile traveling to Dubai. Why it's in Dubai, I don't know. Dubai, of course, famous for celebrating women.
Absolutely.
We're better to host a qualifying round of matches for women's rugby. I guess it's convenient because it's halfway between all the countries. I don't know. It's got a big airport.
It's warm. The delegates, the World Rugby.
Yeah.
Good facilities, I suppose.
Approach to COVID isolation is loose. I don't know. It's there anyway. That's where it's happening. We don't know why. Guess money. So I mean, all of those teams are ranked much lower than Scotland, Craig. But with the women's rankings, I think the women's rankings are skewed slightly because, a bit like with the men's rankings, I suppose not everybody gets to play everybody as often as, say, a team like Scotland do.
Yeah.
So there's less of an opportunity to trade ranking points with the higher up teams, where Scotland at least get that opportunity once a year in the Six Nations. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's on paper it's doable. But I would worry a little bit about the heat in Dubai.
Well, it depends, because there's a fair few of the players have played sevens, and played for Scotland sevens, etc. So they're used to Hong Kong. They're used to the different places that they go to. So they're used to the heat. I'm more worried about just Scotland having a brain fart at the wrong moment. I think we've got a strong coaching team. Or we will have a strong coaching team. I know that we're looking to recruit an assistant coach. We've got some phenomenal players. Watching Jade Conkle play the big game the other day for Harlequins, and all the other players that are playing in the Premier 15s are getting so much experience. The players that are over in France are getting a huge amount of experience as well of really strong rugby. So I have, just as you say, we have on paper, we have the ability to do it, and I've got the belief that they will do it because the things are in place. I just worry about the typical Scotland thing, and it's not Scotland women's team, it's Scotland as a whole just having a brain fart at San Marino, or just all these different things. So just to bring a football thing into it, so that's my only concern. Concern.
I think for me as well, I guess, Johnny, the lack of preparation time has kind of been a bit of a curse for Scotland women before. I mean, the majority of the squad work, so getting time together before going straight into a knockout tournament of a game. You're playing a game at a time is quite high pressure. It's quite a lot to expect for them to go in cold like that. You look at the previous qualifying tournament that led to this. They very much built to a point where they beat Ireland to get through, but that was built through a succession of that performance came after a succession of games together. Then we had Japan with a pretty ropey first half, but at least again they'd been together between. It hadn't been that long since the Ireland game. This is a big long break, and I suppose it's a big ask to kind of go straight into international rugby, literally from a standing start. Yeah,
no, it definitely is, and I guess, like Craig says, the players that are in the Premier 15s, they've been quite lucky because their fixtures have been quite consistent. But at the same time, they're sprinkled in amongst the Premier 15s, and so it's not like you're playing week in, week out with the same people. You might be playing every week, you might be playing at that standard of competition, but you're not playing with anyone that you're going to be on the international setup with. So it is basically like coming in completely cold. I would quite like my prediction. I'm going to try and will it into existence to be for Scotland to have centrally contracted professional women's contracts by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because that would make a huge difference.
I would like there to be a discussion about a professional women's team by the end of the year, but I think that's a stretch. I think the scope to do. I think that's where women's rugby needs to go. I think women's rugby is growing very fast. I think there's a lot of interest in it outside of rugby as a sport. It's just, I don't know whether the unions that could come together to do it have the willingness to put together some sort of combined league, because that potentially would work. And it would benefit all the teams, because at the moment, a team like England, there's such a gulf between England and New Zealand, and then the rest. That the only way you solve that is by creating some sort of league where everybody's playing sort of the best players week in, week out.
Women's URC.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That should be absolutely 100%. The way it should go. The problem you have is that you've got Irish rugby who don't seem to give a rat's ass about it at the moment. And maybe I'm being a bit strong on that one, but I just think Ireland are one of the big pushers of the URC. Their headquarters are in Dublin, etc. So it's a matter of will they take it? Do they take it serious enough, and will they push it to get it into place?
Look, I think Wales are taking it very seriously now. The issue of professionally contracted women rugby players. I think the SRU need to speak to Wales and then potentially speak to the RF. Let's forget Ireland. If Ireland are going to treat their women rugby players as badly as they have done, the answer is to speak to the RFU and look at Premier 15s as a potential way. And I know in men's rugby, I know I sound like a kind of tribalist Welsh rugby saying, let's join the championship, boys. Let's get the Scarlets in the championship. Let's have a game against Bedford Blues every week. That'll show them. I know it sounds like that, but I think genuinely the way that there's been a lot of noise from England recently with the players particularly saying that they don't think it's doing the sport any good for England to be winning 15 sticking 50 points on the like Scotland and Wales.
Yeah.
That's not. They don't want that to happen. They would rather the fixtures were competitive, and so I think there should be a discussion. If Ireland aren't interested, then let's look to France, let's look to England, let's look to Wales and Scotland and say, what can we do? Because I think realistically, Scotland are only looking at putting one franchise together. That's what you're looking at. And I would rather see a women's professional team than I would be an expansion of the Super Six by 2 teams. Because that to me would do more
women's
for
Celtic
rugby in
Warriors
Scotland.
on the go.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to stop them joining the Premier 15s, because they're not playing week in, week out they've not got as many games as the men's Premiership, so they've got the ability to fit them in,
Yeah. John, your prediction for women's rugby?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it, but I absolutely think we are going to see them at a World Cup. We're going to see them. I think we always have this. We're very hard bitten Scottish fans. We come into these situations when realistically we could probably will beat these teams, and we should be looking at a World Cup. I think there'll be a bit of a wave of emotion, kind of the team will be kind of riding on for obvious reasons as well. So I think, I really, really think we will see them at the World Cup, and that's going to be an amazing spectacle. And again, just going to further enhance the exposure of the women's game in Scotland, because we all know, like, seeing teams at these major tournaments is what gets people interested. And it's like you'll get people interested in games without that, but that is your kind of big exposure points where you've got people seeing the team at the highest national level. And I think it's going to be really, really great to see. And we'll just put further pressure. And, you guys have touched on the point regarding funding, touched on the point regarding professionalism. All this all boils down to the national game really kind of driving what we require at club level, and we do require more. So I think Scotland go to a World Cup, there's going to be a groundswell of movement towards that that situation where we might see one Scottish franchise, we might see a league developed in some way, but I think that's the way we're going, and it's only right that that's the way we're going.
Yeah. Six Nations, very quickly then, Women's Six Nations, what's your prediction for that, Craig? How many games do you think Scotland can realistically win?
I think I think there's a good chance of 3. I think we've got a chance of Wales. We've got Ireland's number at the moment, and if we have a bit of buzz on from the game in February, then hopefully we'll be able to beat Italy. I think France and England. France, you could have a bad day, but England at this moment in time are a steamroller at the moment, and So I think if we look at 3 and say if we can take 3 games in the Six Nations, I think we've done well.
A good result, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Scotland men then. Shall we talk briefly just about some of the mad cat plans that are to make the Six Nations happen? So Ian McGeechan has come out, and this has got some traction. I don't know that it's necessarily got any kind of definite traction in this, but it's Ian McGeechan has said, why don't we play games in England? And he's mentioned St James's Park. I know the Rob Baxter said, let's just get all the games played in England. I think there's noise from Wales that they could play games in Bristol to get around the fact that in Wales you can't have any spectators at the moment, and in Scotland the limit's 500. Now, to me, there's a number of reasons why it doesn't work. Firstly, the Scottish Government have just told everybody not to go over the border for Hogmanay, so there's no way they're going to be supportive of 57,000 fans travelling down to Newcastle for a day out on the lash. and piling into trains back again. Although, as Johnny pointed out earlier today to me, it's a bus replacement service on between Newcastle and Edinburgh that weekend.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, I was
Secondly-
quite, because I'm going to France. I was quite keen until I discovered it was a replacement bus.
Yeah.
Now I don't fancy it so much.
Nah. And then the other issue is, Newcastle are playing at home 3 days after the Calcutta Cup match. So you're not going to turn around a pitch in 3 days after it's been played, and a game of international rugby's been played on it. Then there's the fact that Newcastle United are not just going to turn over and say, you can also, they're obviously going to be charged for using the stadium, first of all. So they want to cut at the gate. The SRU obviously make a lot of money from the concession stands around Murrayfield, either for leasing out people to come in and set up their stands or from direct drink sales. There is no way in hell that Newcastle United are going to say, on you go, just bring your own staff and your own booze and you guys can just have at it. They'll be taking 100% of all receipts. So the profit from doing it is absolutely minimal. You'd make more money from having 500 people inside a Murrayfield than you would do from renting out St James's for 2 games, I reckon.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably not far off.
It's madcap. And
Not least, and damn, hang on, wait a minute. I need to find it. Where are we?
Oh, here we go. Come on.
I need to get it. Where is it? Not least for the fact that you're playing at St James's Park, which is owned by a fund related to the Saudi Arabian royal family.
Yeah.
So I know it's supposed to be separate and all of that, but I don't really think it's a great look to be aligning yourself with people associated with human rights abuses.
It's a fundamentally bad look anyway, after 2 years of saying, let's all do our part, and having Jason Leach on the official podcast and stuff and saying, like, we're taking it easy in our return to rugby. We're all getting changed outside. We're not opening the bars. We're doing our part. We're sticking together. Make sure you all get your vaccine. Have Jason Leach on again to then be like, hey, let's all just go on the piss in England and bring it all back. 60,000 people in your replacement buses. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, it just completely defeats the purpose of the last 2 years if we do that.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't happen. Hopefully there was some kind of thing today that hopefully by February everything will be back as it was, but we'll see. Six Nations then. Johnny, predictions for Scotland?
Top half. I think I would like to see us beat Ireland. That's the main thing I want to see happen, because I think Ireland are Scotland's last big stumbling block. And if we could turn them over this year, because we haven't beaten them for ages, we just don't seem to be able to get around their game plan. And I think if we could do that, that's our last. We've got over the losing games in the last 10 minutes. Beating Ireland is our last big thing, and if we could do that, we'll finish top half and we're in a much better place for the World Cup.
Yeah. Craig?
I would almost go as far as saying we've got a chance of winning it.
Craig.
That's it then. You've done it now. You've done it now.
Let's just go a step further and say Grand Slam. Why not?
No. I'm not going that far. I just think, I think Ireland are the strongest out of all the teams at the moment that we're looking at. Ireland look incredibly strong at the moment, but as you know, they peak far too early usually, and it's usually just to beat the All Blacks, and then they come back down to earth with a bump. So I'd like to. I'm very hopeful and kills it. But I think we've got a good chance of a top 2 finish.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll finish 5th, beating Italy.
I may as well go. I should stop doing this. I'm obviously way off.
A 1-pointer against Italy.
Duncan Weir drop goal because everybody else is injured. Is that right, John?
Yeah. Is that Duncan Weir drop goal from fullback? Because we're actually links. Yeah. No,
because Hoggy's playing 10.
But no, because Hoggy's playing flanker.
Blair Kinghorn's obviously going to play 10. Come on now.
Kinghorn, he's in the second row at this point, mate. It's all went horribly wrong with this. Remember, I think Italy the last game. So
No, Ireland's last game.
Ireland's last game. All right, so there's plenty of time for things to go
For the Grand Slam.
No, I mean, obviously, I'm trying to wish the anti because I'm quite good at saying something and then the opposite happens in this podcast. So, I think Scotland should be optimistic. We clearly had a really good Six Nations in front of no fans last time out. I think how we translate that performance into potentially, full stadiums, potentially we'll see what happens. But I think if the stadiums were to be empty again, it actually does benefit Scotland. Obviously not financially, and nobody wishes this at all. But I think from a player perspective, we seem to be able to generate our own energy quite well, and it certainly removed quite a lot of the fear of going to, say, Twickenham, Stade de France. So I think if that happens again, Scotland should very much be targeting winning it. I think realistically, top half is a good outcome. And if we are scraping win against Italy with a drop goal, then something's went horribly wrong.
If we go into our live pod on Super Saturday with even a chance of winning it, that would be a lovely day.
It's going to be
a great day out.
Fab day.
Yeah. Tickets are available. Go to the Twitter feed or our Instagram.
We've got 2 days of early bird tickets left as well.
Yes, it's got 2 days of early bird ticket deals for that. It's the 19th of March, the last day of the Six Nations. We're doing our live podcast at the Biscuit Factory in Leith. So all the others have been cancelled because of coronavirus, and the organisers couldn't guarantee they'd go ahead. But we're sticking to hoping that last weekend will go ahead. So
does the Biscuit Factory sell biscuits? Like, important question.
I think he used to. Probably could ask them. I'll take a package of chocolate digestives with me just in case.
Well, that's good, yeah. Like, we'll pack a wee carry out just in case. But I'm really hoping they do have some biscuits, because I do like a biscuit.
Yeah.
I've just stopped drinking as well, and I'm going to, and we're going to have a.
You said you were pausing it during the Six Nations, though.
I'll see how it goes.
So you should go for the rule I've went with, which is no drinking during the week. And then,
that's what I'm doing as well.
And then you go for the weekend and you just get absolutely mad with it.
No, I'm totally off it. I'm off it.
I'm getting an Airbnb in Leith so I can like be carried.
Well, I'm going to a wedding at Dalhousie Castle the next day, so I'll be staying there as well. I'm going to investigate.
I'm
staying over in Edinburgh as well.
Well, there we go.
I need to sort this out then.
My wife might be joining me. That's terrifying that she'll get to see the live podcast. So
never meet your heroes, Cameron.
Mine won't, because she's a bridesmaid at this wedding the next day, so she'll.
Oh well, you're safe.
So I'm off the leash.
The rest of 2022 for Scotland, then, before we go, we don't know who we're playing in the summer. We don't know who we're playing in the autumn yet.
Argentina in the summer.
Of course, with the Argentina tour. Why didn't this not come up when I googled it before? Of course, we're to Argentina. I was trying to Google it to remind myself. Yeah, we're off to Argentina. I mean, that's going to got to hope for a full house away to Argentina.
Depends on the team, I guess.
It also depends on which madcap player Gregor Townsend calls up.
Yeah.
Well, that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? Like, I'm really looking forward to the Six Nations squad announcement, because I love nothing more than when we do that and there's that random name that no one has ever heard of, and you're like, all right, yeah, cool, okay, cool. Cammy straight onto the wiki page, and then
I'd heard of Nick Otterak, but I had no idea that he was Scottish.
I mean, he doesn't have a good.
It's
not a strong Scottish name, is it? Really?
There's a couple of. I will say there's a couple of landmines lurking on Wikipedia, ready to go off.
Well, I shared the news articles with the guys picking up Thor, known as Thor throughout school. It's like, no, he wasn't. Can't make that up.
Then he got asked about that, and as soon as it's reported, of course, citation is no longer needed. That's
exactly.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. It's done.
Yeah. This kid says why you should never use Wikipedia. This right here.
This. I guess the other question is, I mean, I'd hope we get a chance to play the All Blacks in the autumn.
We're due them, aren't we? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
That would be
the
pretty good.
fixture kind of run was negotiated though, wasn't it? Because they do like a negotiation for like a 10-year window of like potential opponents, and
But
you
that
get
was
like
pre-COVID, wasn't it? Because at one point
Yeah.
we've missed out on a summer tour against the All Blacks.
yeah, we were supposed
Thank
to go
the
to
Lord.
Dunedin summer last year.
So dodged a bullet. Like, what would you rather have, a summer tour to Dunedin or a global pandemic?
and there's a pause and people are actually thinking about it.
But to be fair, was that not the summer that they replaced it with potentially going to Georgia and Romania, and then that got
Yeah, it
canned
was,
as
yeah.
well?
Yeah.
I don't know which I'd rather have.
yeah.
So
No.
I think the one thing we're sure of, there'll definitely be a left field name or names thrown about the Scotland squad between now and the end of the year. Who it will be, we don't know yet. We are working on an article. We are working on an article on Scottish players that have been stolen by other countries. Just so we can try and get it on rock.co.uk. Balance it out.
There's a back rower at London Irish whose name I can't remember, who's Scottish qualified, and he is pretty good. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it. If I could remember his name, I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
If it was like,
banded around
if it was a
Six
year
Nations
ago,
Six.
I would have been telling you it's Blair Cowan, and he's awesome. Blair Cowan.
I think that's it for us anyway. For the review of preview of 2022.
Well, I mean,
For
was
Scottish
it
Rugby.
really though?
Wow.
Have we actually
Psychic
got
review.
have we got a DeLorean? Have we been back to the future? Do we know what's going to happen? You'll need to. I think you need to subscribe to find out.
If I knew what was happening, I wouldn't be sat here drinking cans of Tennent's McCune's Export. John.
Maybe that's what needs to happen, Cam.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I thought
Is
that
it
was
like in Endgame when
Yeah.
Cammy, you need to be drinking cans of McEwen's Export during the first podcast of the year.
This is the only way, Cam.
The
We're
butterfly
in the end
effect.
game now.
I've seen 10 million futures.
Yeah.
The only one where Scotland won the Six Nations was when Cammy drank McEwen's
Having a
Export.
blaze on McEwen's Export in the first pod of the year.
And there was a groundswell of Scottish patriotism.
Scotland's independent and back in the EU by the end of the year, all because Cammy drank 2 cans of McEwen's Export.
Freedom!
Ah! Brilliant.
Right. On that note, anyway, that's it for this week for the main podcast. Patrons, if you're watching live, you can hang around and listen to the Patreon-only bit of the podcast in a moment. You can also download that if you're a patron on audio podcast later as well. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some rugby to review, although as we speak, various games are already being cancelled because of coronavirus down in Wales. So we'll see. But we don't need to talk about rugby to make this podcast work. We've proven that already.
We could just wrap your welcome.
Remember
Well,
we did
the How 5 under-18s are playing on the weekend, so
Well, then we'll review that.
I can give you a full review of that. That's no problem.
We've not done a book club for a while. We could actually get round to doing the hardest players of the 90s, Scotland's hardest players of the 90s, which John and I have been.
I said to
thinking
you, you
about
were never going to do that. It is the never of Patreon specials.
Yep.
Yeah, it's never.
But all we needed is more game cancellations, and we'll be back there, John.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, for now, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from Craig, Johnny, and John.
Bye.
Well,
Right,